Try to consume single ingredient foods as much as possible.
Anyone in here can eat 2,000 calories from gummy bears.
Never spare expense on what you're putting into your system. If you think you can't afford it, cut something else out that you're spending money on that you can.
Try to stay away from the Frankenstein foods, of course.
Your body changes somewhere like every 3 to 5 years, physiologically, environmentally.
Insulin is the body's storage hormone. Without it, if you're a type 1 diabetic and born that way with a pancreas that does not function, must be my thyroid.
Almost every single chronic disease out there all comes back to mitochondrial dysfunction.
Maybe I'm big boned. No.
I can't tell you how many patients we've seen or I've seen that are full-blown diabetics, whether type 1 or type 2, they are in a coma.
I felt that the inflammation that I had in my body, which I thought was just a byproduct of weight training really, really heavy, gone.
Hello everyone, I am Lacy. Lacy Puttuck. I'm a functional dietitian. This is going to be everything nutrition, so no questions are off the table. We have definitely a very wide range of expertise in the nutrition world up here. Some focusing on performance, some anti-aging, a lot of different just great stuff, clinical even. So any questions are very much so welcome. Give you guys a little bit of what I do. So I work for Dominate Your Game. I do all of the nutrition programming for our clients there. We're very blessed to have just a wide variety of clients. We work with endocrinologists and doctors and all sorts of practitioners to really help people be their best. Like you guys were talking before about testosterone and hormones. We've got all those practitioners that work with us, and I get to work with them. So it's a very cool field to be involved in. I will tell you, I'll probably go off the rails a little just because I tend to have a little bit of a tinfoil hat when it comes to the food world. So I'm sure we'll go down that path a little. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves and talk about their expertise as well. So go ahead, Nathan, you go first.
I'm Nathan Payton. I'm a nutritionist. I work a lot with professional athletes, but also celebrities and even everyday individuals. Probably most known for winning 8 World's Strongest Man titles with clients based around the world. But I've worked with every kind of individual, so it could be anyone from Saquon Barkley to Bill Aucoin, who was the manager of Kiss in his elder years, to Johnny Hawkins, who's the lead singer for the band Nothing More. So the aspect and the applications is pretty broad as far as that goes. Definitely the foundation of a lot of the things that I do when it comes to enhancing performance with athletes such as that is you manipulating the actions of insulin through both timing and scope in order to elicit those super physiological responses.
Hi, I'm Saxby Payton. I am also a registered dietitian. My specialty is kind of the clinical world. That's where I live right now, is in the clinical world. I also have a background of growing up, this is my dad, so growing up with all of this expertise on the very opposite side of clinical, kind of more you learn as you go instead of you learn in textbook and you take tests. So kind of combining those two has been where I am at right now, and I'm loving it.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Dr. John Mike. My doctorate's in exercise and sports science. I'm a former university professor of 10 years. I've taught over 60 courses in sport nutrition and strength and conditioning. I'm actually a former strongman competitor myself. I speak all around the country and around the world. I've done courses in South Korea, Bangkok, Thailand, Singapore. Love supplements, love sport nutrition. And I have also own a sports performance and coaching and consulting business as well. So we deal with higher level athletes, CEOs, organizations to take the science, break it down, put it into real working and actionable steps so everybody can stay more jacked and swole.
Hey everybody, Dylan Gemelli. I'm probably more well known for my podcast, but I have actually been studying nutrition since I was 11. Certified 10 ways over in nutrition. It's been, unfortunately, I started the studies because of an eating disorder, but it's been something that's fascinated me my whole life that I've really put a lot of time and effort into. Actually worked closely with Lacy, so I can, and everybody probably already knows, she is on another level, and I work with those kind of people that I know that I can collaborate with, that we can all share and learn from. But as much as I do and as much as I talk about, I think that nutrition is probably one of the deepest things that I get into, just because of the personal level and how long I've been into it. But I mean, there's going to be so many great things to listen to here, so I'm just honored to listen, share, and learn with everybody else.
My name's Kris Gethin. I've been in the fitness industry since like the mid-90s. I went and studied international health and sports therapy and nutrition in the mid-90s. Prior to that, I absolutely hated school. I couldn't retain the content. I didn't want to be there. But actually being in college, now I was learning something I wanted to learn about, and now I'm starting to eat better. And all of a sudden I started retaining the content. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not stupid like all the teachers told me. So I'm actually doing something that I want to learn. And further from then, I started bodybuilding because I'd come from an extreme sports background prior to that, downhill mountain bike racing, motocross, all that sort of stuff. So I still had that urge to competing something. And that kind of kept me off the white knuckle ride that would have been life, getting into drugs, getting into alcohol, and just partying it up, which I was after retiring from motocross. And getting into bodybuilding, I never really liked being on stage, but I liked the sense of urgency. And I liked getting into bodybuilding because I loved weight training, not the other way around. And then, I worked on cruise liners for a while. That was my ticket out of Wales, where I felt that I needed opportunity. Then I lived in Australia, had a gym there. Then I moved over to Venice, California, the mecca of bodybuilding. That's when I started working for Weeder Publications, Flex, Muscle and Fitness, as a writer and photographer. Then I was the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com to continue that flagship of putting out content. Basically, I wanted to share with more people that I could in a gym, basically. And bodybuilding.com was that stage. And then after that, started a supplement company, which is exhibiting here today. Competed as a natural bodybuilder, got second in the Natural World Championships in 2009. That was my last show. I'm like, I'm out of here. And then continued to compete in different sports like Ironman triathlon, ultramarathon, Spartan, because I was one of those weirdos that just loved cardio. I just loved cardio. People say, oh, cardio is boring. But one of my negatives in school was this guy daydreams. That was on my school reports. So I used that to my advantage as I got older. Like I could swim and look at that black line and go, yeah, this is easy. So that daydreaming actually turned into a positive. So I really love hybrid athleticism. I don't believe that we should be just an ornament and look good and aesthetically great. Our heart is our most important muscle, So I think having that kind of application of looking great, but actually being able to perform at the same time is very, very important, of course, but then reverse our biological age if we can do so at the same time. So, and then I guess we'll talk about nutrition a little bit later.
All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to start out with a question for them all because I'm going to get a different answer from them all, which is great. The question is going to be, what would be, if you were to tell anybody one piece of advice when it comes to nutrition, what would it be and why? And you guys, whoever wants to start can start that one.
So just go to Whole Foods, make sure that you're eating whole foods. So, whether not actually go to Whole Foods, but eat whole foods. If you want seed oils, you go to Whole Foods. But, try to consume single ingredient foods as much as possible, and try to stay away from the Frankenstein foods, of course. But we know, there's the keto, there's the carnivore, there's, all these different protocols that we could follow, or the paleo. But the one thing that should be the common denominator amongst them all is just eat whole, clean foods. Now, a lot of us could argue if grass-fed, humane-raised, wild-caught, organic is actually applicable. I believe it is, because I don't want to have genetically modified food where the grain is no longer at the top of the stalk and it's all the way down the bottom now. That's modified, and I believe a lot of people will blame a gluten intolerance over maybe the amount of glyphosate they could be consuming, and that's causing gut dysbiosis or integrity to their gut. Like when I started kind of going down a rabbit hole of like this biohacking world in 2014, and I started eliminating a lot of the foods that I thought was healthy, and now I'm going towards grass-fed, trying to avoid the hormones, etc. I felt that the inflammation that I had in my body, which I thought was just a byproduct of weight training really, really heavy, gone, decided to disappear. So I felt that a lot of the inflammation that I was dealing with in my gut had actually got, basically into my body, where I thought it was just a physical attribute, and I think it was more so an internal attribute. So I always try to, we know we try to kill inconvenience today, so we've got the protein shakes and we've got the protein bars, and this is coming from somebody that owns a supplement company. Try to go to Whole Foods as much as you possibly can. I understand that supplements do have a place for inconvenience, and I get it, but if you can prioritize those single form ingredients as much as possible, do it. Eat more fiber. We tend to just go for the protein first, and then everything kind of falls after that. Try to eat the rainbow.
So I'm a very big believer of diet dictates everything, okay? And I always break it down between nutrition, training, and supplements, and I will always go 75-80% diet. As important as the training is, don't get me wrong, because it is, but the diet is going to be the end all and be all. It's going to be what causes a lot of diseases, a lot of stresses, a lot of mental problems. So I guess to answer the question simply, putting your main focus and effort into your diet first is what's going to shape how you end up being in an overall state of health. And sometimes it can get complicated or overcomplicated, I get that, but never spare expense on what you're putting into your system. If you think you can't afford it, cut something else out that you're spending money on that you can afford to be without, and try to put what's best into your body. And understand, there's a ton of different diets, there's a ton of different people that want to put you on crash diets. That's not necessarily the answer. It's what works for you. And what works for you may not work for the rest of us. We can give you some basic rundowns on proteins, fats, carbohydrates, importance, facts, and all of that. But some people go higher carb and they're fine. Some people don't. There's different strategies and ways that will work for each other. So it's figuring out what works for you and not letting someone just tell you that's the end all be all on everything, because we're all different. We're all in different states. We're all at different periods of our life, and we all have different backgrounds or conditions that I don't know, Lacy doesn't know, Kris doesn't know, till we interview you and find out. And that's the job of a nutritionist, is to test and see.
Yeah, I think most people don't really understand that acute disease, for sure, for the most part, almost every single chronic disease out there all comes back to mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay? Like every single chronic disease known to mankind, womankind, if you want to deal with that too, comes back to mitochondrial dysfunction. Most people forget or not aware that prior to the 1980s, there was almost no obesity. Obesity almost did not exist prior to the early 1980s. I think on a basic fundamental level, the vast majority of people need to be more informed, and they need to be more educated with respect from a nutrition point of view on a very basic level. Like, okay, you look at a label. What does it say? It's not just the words. What do they mean? If it has more than like 10 ingredients in it, you don't necessarily have to be like a food scientist, a food favoring, individual, or deep into nutrition science. It's probably not going to be the best choice for you. I think a lot of people really they want to understand the complex first without understanding the basics of how things actually work as well. So most people need to focus more on a fundamental aspect of, like, what is the label, basic nutritional information, some micronutrients, some like macronutrients. And once people become more informed on a basic level, then they can just adapt and evolve better. And there's so, just like everyone's saying on this panel, there's so much inter-individual variability that, for example, I did a lot of a self-experimentation. I stopped eating like regular breads or sourdough breads. I'm not sensitive. I don't have a gluten intolerance. I don't have any type of sensitivities. But I noticed when I took out some of those like regular potatoes, heavier breads, I switched to rice and sweet potatoes, like I was significantly less bloated. Less bloated in the face, less bloated like up in the chest area. Again, it was just more from experimentation perspective. But also, too, people forget that hormonally, your body changes somewhere like every 3 to 5 years, physiologically, environmentally, chemically, neurotransmitter-wise. Like this is one of the reasons why people can men and women can eat whatever they want in their 20s and not gain anything, and all of a sudden they turn 35, they turn 40, and everything goes to shit. Okay, so there's so much variability, but you also have to contend with other factors like environmental factors, things what companies put in labels. You know, protein. Not all protein is not all created equal, my friends. Okay, so get more informed from a basic educational perspective of what's on the label, and even from a supplement perspective as well. But I noticed, like when I was finishing my PhD, this was 10 years ago, I was about 305, 308 pounds. I was really, really strong, and I'm a former strongman competitor. And it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you look really strong, and all of a sudden, like, time goes by, and then you look at pictures prior, and you're like, dude, you're fat. You know? So I didn't do anything crazy. It was like more vegetables. My protein was always high. But another thing that people don't recognize is, like, I'm 43 right now, and I float between 270, 275, and like 13 to 14%. But I don't need like 600 grams of carbs a day like I did when I was maybe in my 20s. I probably didn't even really need that much amount anyway then. So, like, it's, again, experimentation, but again, hormonally things change over a course of time. And again, like, what works for me now really works better now than it did like even like 2-3 years ago. But also, like, I am genetically bigger. Like, I genetically have a predisposition to higher body fat. I've always had to work 5 times harder than the other person who can eat whatever they want, stay jacked, get on 600 milligrams of test or whatever, and they're more jacked. Like, I've just always been more body fat prone. You know, so yeah, I didn't do a DNA test. I would definitely be interested in, you know, in doing that. But there's just so much individual variability, and this is why, and to your point, Dylan, earlier, it's like, I would actually argue that the nutritional part is way more complex chemically and molecularly and cellularly than the training aspect. Like, I mean, just, it's like car mechanics. I mean, yeah, it's complex, but if you know the fundamentals, it's not really, but like, your body is like way more complex than car mechanics, you know? So yeah, good stuff.
And to kind of even follow right in on John there, as far as, you know, the body being complex and the influence of training, yet nutrition being far more, dare I say, important and relevant to that overall progress. And the way that I like to make that example known is that, anybody who's worked with me knows I am absolutely no fan of counting calories. In fact, for any client that's ever worked with me, we've never counted calories because I find it completely irrelevant. Now, it is a mathematical tool. So counting calories, you have a mathematical equation, you have a burn rate, if you will. It is a form of mathematics to find you a starting location for where to then bridge out with your macros, your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats. The reason that I say that is because anyone in here can eat 2,000 calories from gummy bears or eat 2,000 calories from steak, and it has a profoundly different action on the body. So calories, by default, as you just see, if that's your focus, they're completely irrelevant. It is actually, as your parents would say, you are what you eat. And that is exactly correct, even though they didn't necessarily know that. With that, the macros being so important, it's because the actions of insulin, which would be my main recommendation for everyone to kind of really take a deep dive on if you were to take a deep dive. Insulin will govern absolutely every single response that happens inside your body. It is a hormone. Most people don't look at it as being a hormone. They just think, oh, they have a diabetic grandma. Grandma takes insulin, and that's what it is. Insulin is the body's storage hormone, meaning without it, if you're a type 1 diabetic and born that way with a pancreas that does not function, without it, you cannot store anything and you'll be dead very, very quickly. Your blood glucose level will shoot to the moon, you'll be in a coma, and that's that. If you're a type 2 diabetic, you're a type 2 diabetic because you've made poor nutritional decisions paired with life beating you down. And what I mean by that is, as they were talking about the influence on various factors having an impact on the body, the way that you receive nutrition will be heavily dictated and determined by the lifestyle that you yourself live as an individual. So the stressors in your life, both job, both physically, training is still a stressor. That counts. The actions that go on within your relationships, the things that go on in your environment. If you have a very stressful environment, you live in New York City and it's hustle bustle, that is actually a stressor. anything that you do has an environmental impact on you because it impacts directly the actions of insulin in your body. Stress and cortisol are one in one. Cortisol also being a hormone. It opposes the actions of insulin. So insulin is a storage hormone and wants to take the nutrients you consume off to where it will do the most good for your body and benefit. Cortisol is released and increases through the rate of stressors that you've been exposed to. Illness, like I said, could be situational, could be job, could be school, could be you don't sleep very much. All those things are stressors on the body which impact cortisol. Cortisol's job is to basically fight yin and yang insulin. When cortisol is elevated, insulin cannot do its job. When cortisol is elevated through those environmental or external influences, insulin can't efficiently carry off the nutrients from your whole foods. From the very good decisions you make with your diet, it's still not getting the job done. And that's where a lot of people start to think, well, it must be the hormones, must be my thyroid. Maybe I'm big boned. No. Take a look at your life and your lifestyle because it's having a very impactful influence on how your body's receiving nutrition, which all goes down to the actions of your insulin and how efficient can you maximize that or how efficient can you utilize that, even down to being able to medicate your children or yourself. If you have a headache, you would be stunned that if you're a 2 Tylenol person, here we go, now I just made myself autistic and everybody in here, I guess, because the Tylenol. But if you're a Tylenol person, a 2 Tylenol, take half of a Tylenol with some form of carbohydrate source, say it an orange, salt, anything like that, which is going to activate the actions of insulin in your body, and you can get away with less just by using the powers of insulin. Kris's supplement company, you can take every single supplement that he has, and you can magnify its impacts based on how you rotate your nutrition around his products. So his products will make your nutrition work more efficiently, and the nutrition will make his products work more optimally. So it's a twofer. So insulin governs everything.
I would say my biggest thing is what works for me does not work for thee. So if you ever come into wanting to do anything nutrition-wise, maximize any type of your body wanting to do something, if you're coming to someone that's going to give you a sheet and say, do this, I did this, I would take a pause and I would probably find somebody else. There's, even coming from the clinical side, I see the extreme effects of everything. So I can't tell you how many patients we've seen or I've seen even in the last month that are full-blown diabetics, whether type 1 or type 2, they are in a coma. They went into DKA. Their blood sugar was entirely too high, 1,000s, 2,000s, you name it. I've seen it all. But the protocol that we are doing to feed them is based on not only their hormones and are they even hemodynamically stable for nutrition to come into play, but the insulin regimen for them is not, you can't give an insulin regimen to an 18-year-old diabetic that weighs 90 pounds that's in a coma versus, a 250-pound type 2 that is also in the same coma. So it's all, it's all individual, and you basically never try to do a cookie cutter or I did this, I want to look like them, I'm going to do what they did, I'm going to look just like them, I'm not going to have any problems, everything will be fine.
God bless you, Saxby, for doing clinical work still, because, that was, I'm so glad I don't anymore. Thank you for doing it. So I'm going to kind of pull my best into what you guys all said. So I always tell people the best thing you can do when it comes to nutrition is to listen to how you feel after you eat. I think it's huge, and it's not just physical, but also mentally. If you go eat lunch and you feel like crap after you ate it, you're tired, you want to go crawl under the desk, you're depressed, you don't want to do anything, you're not motivated, what did you eat? And it may have been all whole great food, but maybe your body's just not doing well with that. Maybe it was too heavy in carbs, maybe too heavy in fats, depending on how you metabolize. But I feel like that's our best way if we do start with a base of whole single ingredient food and then listen. We have to listen because your body will tell you Yes, I like that. No, I don't. Like you said, we can eat, 1,000 calories of gummy bears. I would love that in the moment, but I'll tell you what, after that, it's not going to be very fun, right? Oh, probably 3 days of that won't be fun. But I could eat 1,000 calories of steak and feel like $1 million. That I know for sure. So it really, you have to just listen. Your body will tell you. And I think too many times people listen to their brain when their brain says, oh yeah, I want gummy bears, not steak. And then they end up physically feeling terrible. So there's a big connection, I think, to making sure we're listening to what our body tells us. Because you can go, like you said, there's all protocols, carnivore and vegan and all these other things. I'm not a vegan, never will be. But, if you want to eat mostly plant-based, fine. Eat whole natural food if that's how your body feels better. If you want to eat mostly animal-based, if that's how your body feels better. As long as it starts there and it's not a cookie-cutter protocol, I think everybody kind of bringing that together kind of makes sense.
And watch our channel for more interesting information like this. But if you do want a more breakdown of real science versus media fear-mongering, subscribe, drop me a like, and share this with someone. And check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and now on Spotify. You can listen to content like this.